know, students, today's agenda is to do a warm-up. We're going to be working with radical equations, and you will be able to do 5.1. Today, students will be able to solve simple radical equations. And I see I have it twice in there. So you're looking for a number that multiplied by itself 2 times gives us that number. So for the first one, it's just going to be 10 because 10 times 10 will be 100. For the second one, because we have a negative, we have seen these ones before. So whenever you have a negative inside of the square root, that means that you're going to end up with an imaginary number, and the square root of 64 is 8. So 8i. In here it says estimate. So we know that the answer is going to be very close to 11 because 11 times 11 is 121. So it's about 11. So it's between 11 and 12 actually, but very close to 11. And we can actually check with our calculator. In some calculators, first you put the symbol of the square root, which is the case of this one. For others, you first put the number and then the square root. So in this one, you put the square root 122 equal, and it's 11.045, etc., etc. Okay, so it's an irrational number. In these two other calculators, first you put the number 122, the square root, and the answer will pop out. And I'm just gonna round it to the hundredths. This one right here is very close to, well, 20 times, this is very close to 400, and 20 times 20 will give you 400. So that means that is 19 point, I'm even gonna say maybe around 8 or 9, but let's see. Square root of 399, it's 19.97, so it's very close to 20, okay? 97 when we round it to the hundredths. And in here we don't go up, and the reason is because the next number is a 4. This needs to be, if I'm rounding the hundredths, this will need to be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 to round up to 8. But since it's a 4, it stays. Some people prefer to put this wiggly instead of equal. It says about, okay, because you're rounding. The first one says the square root of the difference of a number and 4 is the square root of 5. So the square root of the difference, that means that you have a square root and there is a difference inside. And what is the difference? A number and 4. So a number and 4. Then is always stands for equal. The square root of 5. The square root of 5. So we already set up the equation. Now what we're going to do is to square both sides to get rid of that square root. This square root cancels with the square. So now you only have x minus 4 equals, oops, I forgot to square on this side too. And the square root cancels with the square and you get 5. Now in here, if we're subtracting, the opposite is to add 4. And so x is equals 9. So the answer is 9. Now, in this case, we can actually have some answers that are not true answers. They're extraneous answers. Extraneous. If you don't know how to pronounce something, you can even go to YouTube and just say pronunciation and then write the word and it will give it to you.
Extraneous. Extraneous. In British English. Extraneous. Extraneous.
In Australian English. Extraneous. Extraneous.
Sometimes even then I cannot pronounce it. I'm sorry. Okay, so let's check to make sure that it's not an extraneous solution. I think it said extraneous. So to make sure that this is not an extraneous answer. Okay, so what we're going to do is start with the initial, but instead of x, we're going to substitute with 9 minus 4. And then we say, is it equal to the square root of 5? Then we subtract 9 minus 4 keep the square root, and is the square root of 5 is equals to square root of 5, so we say check. So that's not an extraneous answer, it's correct. Okay, let's continue with number 2. It says 7 minus the square root of a number minus 2 is 4. So 7 minus the square root of a number minus 2 is 4. And so the first thing that we want to do is to subtract the 7 because that's outside of the square root. This cancels and I get negative square root of x minus 2 equals 4 minus 7, negative 3. Now I'm going to divide by the negative in here. Divide by negative to cancel that negative. And we get the square root of x minus 2 equals negative divided by negative becomes positive. 3 divided by 1 is 3. Now we're going to get rid of that radical or square root by squaring, but if I do it on one side, I have to do it on the other side. This square root cancels with the square, and so we get x minus 2 equals 3 squared is 9. Finally, if I'm subtracting, the opposite is to add 2, and x is equals to 11. Again, we need to check to make sure that is not an extraneous answer. Okay, and so we have 7 minus the square root of x, but we know that x is 11 minus 2. Is it equal to 4? We simplify this part first. And so 7 minus the square root of 11 minus 2 is 9. Is it equal to 4? The square root of 9 is 3, so 7 minus 3, is it equal to 4? And yeah, 7 minus 3 is 4, so we say 4 equals 4, so check. So that will be a solution. Number 3 says negative 1 times the square root of a number is negative 49. So negative 1 times the square root of a number, the square root of a number would be like this, and you can put that times like this or just leave it like that, is means equal negative 49. The first thing that you're going to do is divide both sides by negative 1 to cancel that negative, and we get square root of x is equals to negative divided by negative is positive. 49 divided by 1 is 49. And so we have the square root of x, but what we need is x by itself. We square it to get rid of that square root. Remember that square roots are opposites of squares. And so we are left with x equals 49 times 49. And so we put 49, square is right there. Oh, the square is x to the second power equals. So it's 2,401. So in here we have negative 1 times the square root of 2,401. Is it equal to negative 49? And this negative 1, we're going to bring it down and take the square root of, so the square root of 2,401 is 49. So now we do need to put the times in there, and we got 49 from here, from taking the square root of that. Is it equal to negative 49? Negative 1 times positive 49 is negative 49. Which is equals to negative 49. So we say check. So that answer is correct. It's not an extraneous answer. And number 4, the square root of the sum of 4 times a number and 7 is 3. So the square root of the sum, That means that I have an addition in here of, what am I going to add? 4 times a number and 7 is 3. Since there is nothing outside of the square root, the first thing that I'm going to do is to square both sides. The square root cancels with the square, and I get 4x plus 7 equals 3 squared is 9. And then I start solving. Minus 7, minus 7. I get 4x equals 2. I divide both sides by 4. And so x is equals to, this is 2/4. But if I simplify, I can divide both by 2. And 2 divided by 2 is 1. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So it's 1/2. And so the square root of 4 times x, but we know that x is 1/2, plus 7, is it equal to 3? And so 4 times 1 is 4, divided by 2 is 2, plus 7, is it equal to 3? Square root of 2 plus 7 is 9. Is it equal to 3? And square root of 9 is 3, which is equal to 3. And we say check. Okay, let's now solve more simple radical equations without the word problems. So in here we have the square root of x equals 4. To solve for that, all you have to do is square both sides. We cancel the square root and we get x is equals to 4 times 4 is 16. So 16 will be the answer. Now to check, all you have to do is substitute in here. So the square root of x instead of x is 16. Is it equals to 4? Well, the square root of 16 is 4. So it is correct. Let's put numbers in here. So we have 4. This is 5, 6, and 7. So that was 5. Now let's do number 6. The square root of x plus 3 equals 6. We subtract 3 from both sides. And we get square root of x is equals to 3. We square both sides to get rid of the square root because they cancel each other, and we get x is equals to 9. Again, for the checkup, we just substitute the answer into the x, and so the square root of 9 instead of x is square root of 9 plus 3. Is it equal to 6? The square root of 9 is 3 plus 3. Is it equal to 6? And yeah, 3 plus 3 is 6, which is equal to 6, so check. Okay, let's do number 7 over here. And we have 2 times the square root of x minus 2 equals 2. The first thing that we want to get rid of is any addition or subtraction outside of the square root. Outside, okay? Make sure that it's outside. So if I'm subtracting, the opposite is to add 2. And we get 2 times the square root of x equals 2 plus 2 is 4. Now we divide by 2 on both sides, and this cancels. We get the square root of x equals 4 divided by 2 is 2. We square both of these. Whoops. The square root cancels with the square, and so x is equals to 2 squared is 4. For the check, all we have to do is substitute. So 2 square root of 4 minus 2 is it equal to 2. I take the square root of 4 first. bring down this, and this is multiplication. If there is nothing, that means that you're multiplying. And so the square root of 4 is 2, minus 2, is it equal to 2? 2 times 2 is 4, minus 2, is it equal to 2? And 4 minus 2 is 2, which is equals to 2, so we say check. Continue with some more. So number 8, we have square root of x equals negative 3. I raise both to the second power or square it. Same thing. And that cancels, and so x is equals to negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. Let's check. And so 9 inside of the square root, is it equal to negative 3? And we get that the square root of 9 is 3, is not equal to negative 3. So that gives us an extraneous solution. It's square root of x plus 5 equals 2. I subtract 5 from both sides, and I get the square root of x equals negative 3, because when we have different signs, we subtract and leave the greater sign. 5 minus 2 is 3, and the greater sign is negative. Finally, I square both sides to get rid of the square root, or cancel it, and we get x is equals to 9. Again, we're going to check. Square root of 9 plus 5, is it equal to 2? Square root of 9 is 3 plus 5. 3 plus 5 is 8, which is not equal to 2. So we say that this is also an extraneous solution. Number 10. We have negative 3 square root of x equals 9. We divide both sides by negative 3 to cancel the multiplication. And so square root of x is equals to positive divided by negative is negative. 9 divided by 3 is 3. We square both sides. This cancels, and you get x is equals to 9. Now let's do the check. Negative 3 times the square root of x, which is 9. Is it equal to 9? Negative 3 times the square root of 9 is 3. Is it equal to 9? Negative 3 times 3 is negative 9, which is not equal to 9. So again, we have an extraneous solution. So basically, when you do, as you see in these 3 examples, all of them are extraneous because they don't match on both sides. They're not equal to each other. And sometimes it looks almost the same, but they're opposite of each other, right? Whilst one is negative and the other one is positive. Same for the first one in this group. But in here, they even tend to be different numbers completely, not just opposites. Make sure that you do the checkup testing here, because not all of them will be a solution. You need to check and see if they are not some extraneous answers, okay? So number 11. For number 11, you have the square root of 2x minus 3 equals 3. I square both sides to cancel the square root. They cancel each other, and we get 2x minus 3 equals 3 times 3 is 9. Remember that it's not 3 times 2, 6. No, it's 3 square means 3 times 3 these many times, which is 9. We add 3 to both sides, and we get 2x equals 9 plus 3 is 12. If we're multiplying, the opposite is to divide by 2. And so x is equal to 6. Now we're going to check, and I think I'm going to do the check down here. So the square root of 2 times x, which is 6, minus 3, is it equal to 3? 2 times 6 is 12, minus 3, is it equal to 3? 12 minus 3 is 9, so the square root of 9, is it equal to 3? And the square root of 9 is 3, which is equals to 3, and we say check. Barely fit it in there, but so this is not an extraneous solution. That will be correct. Okay, number 12. You have negative times the square root of negative x plus 3 equals negative 4. I divide both sides by negative 1 to get rid of that negative. And we get negative x plus 3 equals, negative divided by negative is positive 4. We square this, and that cancels the square root. And we get negative x plus 3 equals, 4 squared is 4 times 4, which is 16. I subtract 3 from both sides to cancel that, and we get negative x equals 13. Finally, if I'm multiplying, the opposite is to divide by negative 1. This cancels, and you get x equals positive divided by negative is negative 13. So the answer is negative 13. Let's see if it's true. So negative times the square root of negative from here, and negative 13 to substitute the x. So this we still keep in here. So negative from here and negative from here becomes a positive, right? Plus 3, is it equal to negative 4? And so, again, we said that negative times negative becomes positive. So that 13 is positive 13. And so we keep this negative from here. We just bring it down. Square root of positive 13 plus 3 is positive 16. And is it equal to negative 4? Now we bring down the negative, and the square root of 16 is 4. And it is equal to negative 4, so we say check. So this is a true solution, it's not an extraneous solution. For number 13, I'm going to need more space. So 13, the square root of negative x minus 1 equals negative 1. Let's get this out of the way. And so the first thing that we are going to do is square this, or square both sides. And the square root cancels with the square. We get negative x minus 1 equals negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. If we're subtracting, the opposite is to add 1 to both sides. I get negative x equals 1 plus 1 is 2. Finally, if I'm multiplying, the opposite is to divide by negative 1 because we don't want a negative variable. And x is equals to positive divided by negative is negative. 2 divided by 1 is 2. For the check, we substitute the 2 in there, the negative 2. So we have a negative already from here, and a negative from here becomes negative negative 2 minus 1. Whoops. Is it equal to negative 1? Take the square root. Negative times negative is positive 2 minus 1. Is it equal to negative 1? 2 minus 1 is 1. Square root of 1, is it equal to negative 1? And the square root of 1 is positive 1. It is not equal to negative 1, so this is an extraneous answer or solution. Okay? That's not a true solution. With this, we end our lesson. If you can please support the channel by giving us a thumbs up, subscribing around here. This is the link to the entire unit. Here you will find the next video. Now you're able to do 5.1 and have fun.